Coming up on Theater Talk.
This is my dream. This is my bucket list to be
What
crawling
is your bucket list?
Are you kidding? This is everybody's bucket list to crawl on the TV and be on this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Theater Talk is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation.
How are you feeling today as I was throwing up into a plastic wash basin? I have been asked as I was emerging from a 4-hour operation with a tube in every orifice, how are you feeling today? I am waiting for the moment when someone asks me this question and I am dead.
From New York City, this is Theater Talk. I'm the producer, Susan Haskins.
And I'm Michael Riedel of the New York Post.
So, Michael, the wonderful play Wit has returned to New York after too long a hiatus.
Indeed. I was thinking about this great play, Wit, and the first time I saw it at MCC many, many years ago. And I've seen, you know, hundreds of plays in my life, but I will never forget the shattering impact that play had on me. It was written by the wonderful Margaret Edson, who is making her second appearance on Theater Talk. She was here many years ago when the original production of Wit premiered in New York. Welcome back to Theater Talk.
It's very nice to be back, Michael. Thank you.
And her play has been given a terrific new production by the director Lynne Meadow, who created and for many years has been running one of the most important theaters here in New York City, the Manhattan Theater Club. Welcome to Theater Talk.
Thank you.
Your debut appearance.
I know. I'm so happy to be here.
Now, Lynne, when you were sort of putting your season together, why did you decide this was the time to bring Wit back, this play?
Well, we were talking about what show I would direct this coming season, last season, and some people on my staff said, well, why don't we think about reviving Wit, and Lynne, would you like to direct it? I said, well, that's a really interesting idea. I'll reread the play. I had read it many years ago, and I read it, and I said, I'd love to do it. I said, if we can cast it well, then I would really love to do it.
And you found Cynthia Nixon.
Yes, actually things don't happen quite this easily, but I called Cynthia Nixon and I said, we're thinking of reviving Wit and I'm going to direct it, and are you interested in doing it? She said, that's a great idea. Sign me up. So that's how it happened.
Now, Margaret, this play went on to win the Pulitzer Prize and is performed, I would imagine, often around the world. But if I'm not mistaken, when you first wrote this and it was circulating in New York, nobody would produce it originally.
It's not a very producible play. It's extremely difficult. Its main character is cranky, and it has a mysterious relationship with time that's very challenging for the director to parse out. It's been described by Jerry Patch, the artistic associate at Manhattan Theater Club, as 90 minutes of suffering and death mitigated by a pelvic exam and a lecture on 17th century poetry. So for those reasons, I understand why it has been not produced better than I understand how it's been produced.
When this play came around the first time, was it submitted to the Manhattan Theater Club?
It was submitted to the Manhattan Theater Club.
And you turned it down?
I read the play in February, Maggie and I were just talking about this, of 1995. I had just finished a treatment of chemotherapy and was recovering, and I asked my office to send me some scripts to look at, and this was the first play on the top of the pile. The people at Manhattan Theater Club said to me, there's really a wonderful play and we think you should read it. So that was the first play that I read as I was recovering from chemotherapy.
And why did
so I don't think I need to say much more about why at that moment in time it was not a play that I really wanted to do. It was too difficult for me to think about doing that. But I remember putting it down and saying, this is a wonderful play, but it's not a play that I want to do just now.
A lot of people shied away from it. Not people who were cancer survivors, where that makes perfect sense, but people who felt that the subject matter to the general public wouldn't go over, that people couldn't handle a serious play, albeit funny and wonderful, about cancer.
Well, Maggie, we remember when the play opened originally off-Broadway to sensational reviews, the Broadway theater owners wouldn't take it.
Yeah.
Because the cancer play.
Well, it's more than the cancer play. The whole plot turns on punctuation. And that isn't a real audience grabber right at first. It's extremely difficult. It's very challenging for the audience. The audience loves being part of that challenge.
When it's performed, you see that the play is really about how to live your life, about what you do when you're facing a challenge, what happens to a personality in a time of difficulty, and how we can become more human, and how we can transform ourselves, and how we can laugh at ourselves, and how we can learn something from difficult experiences, so that what you describe, while it's reality that there are issues about punctuation, the play is not a cancer play. The play is about living your life and having an experience in the theater where people go and you actually have a chance to experience something that's meaningful and that's also funny, and as I said, lasts 1 hour and 38 minutes, and you have a great time. People want to go see that. That's been our experience.
I want to ask you something, Maggie, because I remember the interview we did with you years ago when Wit first came on. You said you wanted to write a play about a woman who had incredibly sharp mind and verbal ability and who was going to lose it with the disease. Is that still at the heart of what this play is?
And one step farther, how does each of us come into our own peculiar grace? How does this character come into her redemption that is specific to her? And how does that happen to each of us? That's the question that this production answers.
What did you base this character on someone you knew? I know that you had worked in hospice care, if I'm not mistaken.
In a hospital.
Right, in a hospital, people who were dying of cancer. Was it an amalgam of some of the people you saw, or was it based on anyone specific that you saw?
Well, apparently she's a lot like me.
No kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Tough, sharp, verbal, but fine.
Excruciating. Yeah. No, she's
But in
This
your-
has
very
been none of
similar.
our experiences, by the way, what Maggie's
We're
describing.
very
It may be
similar.
there, but for the grace of God.
That's the grace of God. What can
That's
I say?
right.
That's
And her
the
grace
difference
turned out to be a
between us.
Pulitzer Prize.
Exactly. Her grace turned out to be her personality.
And when this play took off and you won the Pulitzer Prize, you went back to teaching. I mean, did your life not change? You must have been offered to write movies, anyone would do your next play, but you went back to Atlanta to teach school. Did you not want to be in the theater? Did you not want to move to New York and become a celebrated New York playwright?
I never wanted to stop teaching. So I didn't want my life to change.
Have you written? You've written subsequent plays, though. You haven't. You have not written another play besides Wit.
I've been busy.
Really? Isn't that's?
I'll do everything in my power to change that.
Do you have another play in you? Do you think? I mean,
The things I want to say by teaching now. There was something I wanted to work out when I was writing Wit, and writing for live performance seemed the best way to do it. There was never any reason to think it would ever be performed. I was writing it alone, and nobody knew me, and I had no connections and no training. It was just something I wanted to work out. And writing a play was the way I thought of to think through certain questions I had. I was 30 at the time. And since then, the things I want to work on, I want to decipher and disassemble through my teaching.
Lynne, you're amazed here.
I'm amazed for so many reasons, because the form of a play is one of the most difficult forms there is. Over the years, in my tenure as artistic director of Manhattan Theater Club, I've approached novelists, I've approached cartoonists, I've approached a number of different people about writing plays, and everybody acknowledges that it's a very difficult form. I wrote once to John Cheever and said I'd read some of his short stories and I loved them, and I said, will you consider this? He said, this is just not a form that I can write in. So the idea that Maggie chose this extremely difficult form to write, and that she wrote this play when she was 30 years old, is a source of such wonder to me and to Cynthia Nixon and to all of us who've had the blessing of working on her play. It's a play full of such wisdom and such humor, the kind of humor that comes when you have a long perspective on life, but there it is. So every time I hear that she wrote this when she was 30 and that she just decided to write a play when people struggle at this
When
craft.
John Cheever says, this is not for me.
I know, it makes me shake.
But,
my
Maggie, Maggie, do you perceive this as a moment of grace, writing this play in your life? Do you feel-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
So it came to
how
you.
could it not be?
Yeah.
We have just a few minutes left, Lynne, but I want to ask you, since Manhattan Theater Club is now going on its what year?
Under my artistic direction, we are celebrating our 40th season.
Can you just take us back?
amazing?
Can you just take us back and give us a sense of what it was like to start a theater like that in the 1970s in this city?
It feels like yesterday, first of all. I guess like Maggie's play, the past and the present kind of become one. But it was a very exciting time. There was a movement starting of people who wanted to do interesting work, different work that was different from what the commercial theater was doing. And I was a young director, very young, when I came to New York. I was just out of Yale. And I wanted to direct a play. So I directed a play at this place. I rented a space. And then everything just seemed to happen after that. And as a director, I wanted to work in a theater that had a good reputation because I wanted to work with good people, and I liked the idea of working in a quality institution. So I spent a number of years making it a quality institution so I could have a great place to work in.
And you started, where was it? On the east side, right?
It's on the east side, on East 73rd Street.
Yeah, and what was the rent of the place that you took? Do you remember?
How much was the rent?
Yeah, what were you paying back then for a theater?
Not very much. I don't remember. I know my partner Barry Grove says a lot that pretty much everything has stayed the same. We've just added a lot more zeros now.
That's right. And a beautiful theater, the Samuel J. Friedman on Broadway.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's a terrific production of Wit by Margaret Edson at the Samuel J. Friedman Theater, produced by the Manhattan Theater Club and directed by its artistic director, Lynne Meadow. Thank you, Maggie and Lynn, for being our guest tonight.
Congratulations on the success.
Thank you.
What do you say when a patient is apprehensive, frightened?
Of who?
Never mind.
Dr. Lecter, may I speak with you?
A census taker tried to test me once. I ate
His liver with some fava beans and an Chianti.
Off-Broadway has a monster, yet sleeper hit, Silence the Musical. It stars Jenn Harris as Clarice Starling, conjuring up Jodie Foster in the most remarkable way. The wonderful David Garrison as Hannibal Lecter, and it was written by our friend Hunter Bell, who we remember wrote the fantastic title of show. Welcome you all to Theater Talk.
Thanks for having us.
Now, Hunter, it's my understanding that this musical began not with you, but with a couple of guys who were doing it on the internet or something.
It did. It began on the interwebs. John and Al Kaplan, who wrote the score for the show, started with this idea of, the great idea of we need to have a musical version of Silence of the Lambs because that's what the world needs.
That's right.
And they started doing some parody songs and just put them on the web. And this was kind of pre-social media, pre-Facebook, pre-tweeting and all of it. And they put these songs on the web, a couple of silly songs, began to get picked up, you know, on shock jock radio kind of things, in some of the trades, and it lived in the world of the internet, and people, it would kind of be a backstage joke, and celebrities kind of in that South Parky sort of way lived around, and those are the origins of it. They'd written a little version of a screenplay. Next thing I know, Christopher Catelli, who's our director and choreographer for the piece, contacted me and said, do you know about this? They kind of want to bring this to the Fringe Festival in New York, and I got on board that way. Yeah, so John and Al are the insane brainchilds.
And you've been with it a long time, Jen, right? Doing
I have. I've been with
Clarice
it
Starling by way
From
of
the
Jodie
beginning.
Foster.
Yeah, from the
Day
beginning.
one.
Yep, 6.5 years ago.
Now, how did Al and John know how amazing your Jodie Foster impression would be?
Yeah, there aren't a lot of Jodie
They-
Foster impersonators around that I know of, Jen.
We keep ourselves in the basement. But no, they didn't know about me. They were in LA and casting was in New York, and Christopher Catelli asked me to come in, and Susan Lovell, the casting director at that time, had me come in, and I auditioned for it.
And thank God. I mean, when somebody like this walks in, you're like, okay, here we go.
And were they deliberately looking for someone to do Jodie Foster? Or is it something you brought to it?
I don't know. I really don't know.
We were looking for the best person, the funniest person in the room, and we did. It was an homage, a tip of the hat to that performance she gives. You know, with all the trimmings that you so lovingly.
I remember reading the first script when they first gave it to me and called me in. There was the sh.
There was the sh in there.
He wrote in the
like
the way she says silence or the way she says her ishes. So it was written in the script, and so just seeing that and then watching the movie a million times and then just honing or doing the sides, the scene with the accent, and then pulling from the film and sending up what I
But you
thought
came in
should be
guns
sent up.
blazing. I mean, you
I
sang
came in-
a
I've
Metallica
never-
song, didn't you? Or
No, I sang
John
John Bon Jovi.
Well, there you go. And so you got to hire her based on that.
I read the script and I knew, I was like, I have to have this part. Like, I have to.
Yeah.
And I just went in.
Now,
You killed it.
David, you've got the memory of Anthony Hopkins. I mean, one of the iconic movie performances of all time to live up to.
Memory sits right here every night, right there.
Do you do Hopkins kind of homage, or did you take?
Well, I
a
took my cue from Jenn, to tell you the truth. It's Hannibal via Anthony Hopkins around the bend and through me. I mean, it's not dead on Anthony Hopkins. I couldn't do that, but he's certainly in the ether. And I don't know how much you'd appreciate what's
Yeah, I was
being
gonna
done.
have Jodie and Tony been by to
Jody's
see?
been by.
Jodie came.
Oh, she has really.
She has.
What was her reaction to it?
Well, we didn't know. She came very incognito.
And under the radar, apparently,
Wow.
and it got back to us through, the showbiz PR machine, that she had a great time and thought it was hilarious, and friends that watched her watch it, of course,
Said she loved it.
said she was cracking up. And then we had a great night where Jonathan Demme came with
Yeah.
all the kind of original production people, and kind of they went down memory lane. And I mean, I
We've
think they
had
were
Dan Butler
overjoyed.
there, who played the.
Oh,
Yeah,
Dan
Dan
Butler, of
was
course.
there.
That's right. That's right.
We've had a bunch of people from.
I mean, they did the groundwork for us, like Jonathan and Ted Talley, it's in creating, and even Jodie and those guys, creating such an iconic thing, which is so helpful in the parody of it. I mean, that's your jumping off point to take this important, fluffed up, puffed up, terrifying movie and kind of knock the wind out of the sails. So,
But you almost don't have to do much with it because people have been quoting these lines now for years, and they do it in the Anthony Hopkins way, and they become sort of gags.
That's right.
Gimmicks and gags when
Yeah.
people just.
Right.
and it's been fun because we want to honor people's expectations with what they come in the door, and then there are some people, I don't know, who are not familiar with it,
There are.
But there are people, who it's not so much. What taco shell they've
It's
been
okay.
at,
They
or-
enjoy
it's
it.
the new
They have a good
generation
time.
but they, you want to tell a good enough story and have a good time at the show. So yeah.
We do tell the whole
And we
story. I mean,
do.
it's
You do
virtually
the whole-
every
Scene.
scene,
Yep.
every bit of film shows up in the show,
Yeah.
including the helicopter. I
We
mean,
follow.
it's
We
just
follow.
astonishing.
Yeah, that's true.
right.
We follow the rules of parody of sending something up. You have to do something from the beginning to the end
Right.
in full tilt. So we follow all those rules.
Clutching
And
to the
it's
parody
to
clause
clutching
all
to
the
the parody clause at all times. But parody is in where I believe is the highest form of flattery. I've never sent something up that I didn't love so much in some way, shape, or form. And the more something is loved and adored, I think the easier it is to sort of flip it on its head and look at it in a different way.
So if you're following the movie, why did you come in as
Why
the
did you-
librettist? I mean, why don't you
Yeah, I
just
know,
run the screenplay through the typewriter? There it is.
To put it through with the fuzzy pumper in my brain, to add, to poke holes in it, to find those airplane-esque moments, to turn it on its ear, is where I kind of came in. And John and Al too, with it taking a iconic line and then making a whole filthy musical number about it. So
Yes, it is filthy.
What's that song called?
It's
we can't say.
we can't
right?
say
You
it.
can't say- oh,
No,
you can't say-
it's a boop. Okay.
It's just good, clean, filthy fun.
The best tag.
This question about playing parody is interesting because while you're sending the Anthony Hopkins role up, if you do it with a big wink all the time to the audience, it's not going to be real. You're going to lose them. So how do you navigate that?
Just die a miserable death if you're trying to be funny.
Yeah.
Well, Jen and I spend the entire show just gazing into each other's
stare
eyes,
at him.
basically. But even as comic performers, the stakes are very serious. And in fact, there's sort of a backstory to our being actors in this piece that we
Yes.
don't necessarily have to share with the audience. But this is very serious business for the people that are playing these characters on stage.
It's important
That's
work.
our little secret.
It is.
But the point is, you can't be funny unless you're terribly serious about it.
Yeah.
And my job in the play basically is to be a straight guy.
Yes.
Just
to
set them up
to
so
Jen,
she can knock
bless
them
his
down.
heart.
But that's the thing that's so wonderful is that when you start, and there's no tip-off that you're going to be doing a Jodie Foster impression.
Right.
You're very seriously going through it, but then suddenly you're going, oh, this woman is brilliantly doing Jodie Foster,
Well,
and then in comes Hannibal, and it's
Thanks.
yeah.
And the other take, and the other take that's sort of with parody and doing it, like, there's nothing harder, in my opinion, than being the straight man. And I can't do anything in this show. I can't do it, like you were saying, why do we need him? Like, he states the jokes. Like, and then we lift them up. But in my opinion, there's no way to do, I can't do what I do without the straightness happening next to me, without the prop being there, without the song happening, without the moment, without the thing flying in at the wing and stopping right at the exact same time. It's like math. It really is. Our show is like a huge
Your question's an interesting one, because I faced the same problem years ago doing Hollywood Ukraine.
Right.
Doing a Groucho Marx
Yeah, right,
imitation that wasn't really an imitation of Groucho Marx. The conceit was, what if Groucho Marx were playing a Chekhov play? So you don't wind up doing an imitation. You wind up having a soupçon, a kind of a flavoring of. I don't know how else to describe it, but I think if either of us tried to do a dead-on imitation, it would die, and it would not be funny.
It wouldn't go. So this thing's taking off now. Is it going to remain off Broadway, or is it any possibility it's going to?
Madison Square Garden, I'm sure. It's up to you, Michael.
Bam Harvey.
That's right. As soon as Spider-Man closes, turn off the dark closes, you're going right to the Foxwoods.
Oh
my God.
Foxwood. It'll be some other corporate entity will take over. Yeah.
But has there been interest in it?
Yeah, we hopefully we've got a scrappy, awesome team of producers. I mean, the great thing about the show, it's been a crazy labor of love. We started at the Fringe. We all believed in it. You know, Jen's been there from day one. Chris Catelli, myself.
He's great. That's great direction.
And so smart, and we were so scrappy, and there's been kind of this great team. I think that's the reason why it continues on, is because it is a little bit labor of love, and so it's hopefully we'll live off Broadway in that great tradition down there. And kind of what I love about that too, I remember coming to the city and going to shows like Penn and Teller and Little Shop, and even when Fantastic was down at Sullivan Street. You know, that kind of off Broadway feel, and I love that you go downtown for a show and have that experience. So,
what theater you're at downtown? You're at the
PS 122.
PS 122.
Playhouse, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it's now called the 9th Street.
9th Street Playhouse, and on East 9th down in the East Village. So for the brave souls, it's a fun vibe.
No, but it's a fun
great
vibe,
neighborhood,
and you're just doing great business. So
it's going great. It's going great, and that's no complaint there. But it's fun, and I mean, I'm biased, but I think the reason why it's doing well is it's really funny.
That's right.
They're extremely funny. It's a great time. You get in, get out, you got a tight 89 of hilariousness and ridiculousness, and people are having a good time. So the word of mouth has been great. And
90 minutes, no intermission.
Yep.
My favorite kind of.
Amen.
It's good.
And we sell not only glasses, but whole bottles of wine.
Whole bottles of wine.
Oh, perfect. All right. And butterfly collection. Silence the Musical down at PS 122, starring Jenn Harris as Clarice Starling and our friend David Garrison as Hannibal Lecter. It was written by Hunter Bell. Thanks a lot for being our guest tonight on Theater Talk.
Thanks
Thank
for having
you
us,
so
guys.
much.
now, Jen, before they turn the cameras off of you, I want you to tell us about how you're involved with a lawsuit with Lindsay Lohan.
I saw a camera go off. There we go.
No, put it on.
Don't point at
How I'm involved with I'm no longer involved with the lawsuit of Lindsay
what was
Lohan.
it?
I did 2 Super Bowls ago. I did a E-Trade. Bless your heart for bringing this up.
Yes,
number
thank
one.
you.
I did an E-Trade commercial where I was a baby voice, and it was the one where they called like the baby a milkaholic. Did you hear this? Anyway, and the baby stuck her head in and she said, "Milk a what?" And they thought that that baby was that E-Trade was using her to be Lindsay Lohan, but no one. I mean, my 15 minutes in the studio, no one said anything about that. And then so Lindsay Lohan sued E-Trade because they said that my baby was supposed to be portraying her as a milkaholic, alcoholic. And so she sued E-Trade, they pulled the commercial, and then I did a performance piece at Joe's Pub, and then the Post picked that up, and then the next morning I had a whole bunch of calls from TMZ, and my agents called, and I talked to their lawyers, and they're like, "You can't say anything," and I was just like, I love it all.
Thank you.
That's it. That's the story, but it's all...
That's our kind of source.
Good.
I love that. Lindsay Lohan tried to sue.
Yeah, it was crazy. She tried,
made the
not me,
connection.
she was trying to sue E-Trade, and they
Right.
did a settlement.
Right, right.
But you know,
they did settle?
I lost some cash on that one. It was doing good. It was a Super Bowl commercial.
Absolutely, that's right.
Come on.
Residuals, come on. There you are, perfect. I love it.
I bought a motorbike from those residuals.
Afford to do off Broadway with those residuals.
That's right. Now you can afford to do that.
Yes, yes, I can.
Good thing we gave you free fruit, though.
I could
All
use
right.
more.
All right.
Jen's purse.
Guard the craft tables.
I need the road
Fill Jen's purse with croissants. Like, Jesus Christ.
Put the food away.
Empty platters.
Okay, that's it.
Thank
We're
you
done,
so
right?
much.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap.
This is my dream. This is my bucket list to be
This
crawling.
is your bucket list?
Are you kidding? This is everybody's bucket list to crawl on the TV and be on
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
Yeah, that's
You guys have such good chairs.
Quid pro quo. Do I let this scream and shine my head? If I don't, Catherine Martin is as good as dead. I'll be the laughing stock of the bench. Quid pro quo. You paint a picture of your troubled youth. Quid pro quo. I need your nightmares, not my little sleuth. Share with me the naked truth. Hurry up, you're way too slow. Who is she? I gotta know. Sodomy, fellatio, how I love my quid pro quo.
You can sign up for viewer updates at theatertalk.org.
Or you can Twitter us. Our thanks to the Friends of Theater Talk for their significant contribution to this production.
Theater Talk is made possible in part by the Frederick Loewe Foundation, the Eleanor Naylor Dana Charitable Trust, the Alan S. Gordon Foundation, the Cory and Bob Donnelly Charitable Fund, Carrie J. Fries, the Dorothy STRELSIN Foundation, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and the New York State Council on the Arts, a state agency.
We welcome your questions or comments for Theater Talk. Thank you and good night.